Welcome back to the Woven Well podcast. When it comes to balancing women's health hormones, it can be a really complex process. There are so many factors that come together to help us feel and function our best, but that doesn't mean that there aren't some things that we can do that will have a positive impact more quickly than others. So I've invited Dr. Kela to join us to chat about 5 ways she knows of to help women balance their hormones fast. Dr. Kela Smith is a board certified holistic integrative fertility and hormone doctor, best-selling author, global speaker, and host of the Hormone Puzzle podcast. Dr. Kela, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Caitlin. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you. Now, you have your own podcast and more. I've been honored to be a guest on that podcast in the past. But for our listeners who may not know you, would you share a little bit about how you got into your work or why it matters so much to you?
Sure. So I'm Dr. Kela Smith, and I started my company out of my own personal struggle with infertility and being
Mm.
really frustrated with conventional medicine. I was 36 at the time, and I was told my only option to get pregnant was IVF because I had unexplained infertility. And that just didn't sit well with me. I said, on one hand, you say I'm unexplained, but then you're giving me a medical procedure to do something my body should be able to do naturally. So that was the turning point where I said, I'm going to figure this out. And that's exactly what I did. I dove into research and I figured out what my body needed to work optimally, how to balance my hormones, how to do it fast. And I ended up getting pregnant not once, but twice. And now I have 2 healthy children who are 12 and 9. And I started my practice with a newborn and a 2-year-old, and I help women and couples all over the world solve this issue and get pregnant as well. So that's a little bit about me. And as you said earlier, I have a podcast. I have a bunch of books. I've been, in this industry for a really long time, and I've helped a lot of people with this issue.
Well, when we hear balancing hormones, that's such a general statement. It can mean so many things to so many people. Maybe we can start by you giving a little crash course in what hormones are and what we mean by balancing them.
Sure. So hormones are just chemical messengers that tell your body what to do and how to respond to certain stimuli. And when we balance them, it basically means just everything is in homeostasis. It's working the way that it should. And how we balance them, we're going to get into that in a minute, but it's basically giving the body everything it needs as far as nutrition, the right supplements, the right lifestyle pieces so that it can work at an optimal level and everything is kind of humming along as it should.
Mm. I like the word homeostasis because sometimes I think we hear balancing hormones and we think they're supposed to be even with each other, and that's really not the case. But we need them to be able to play off of one another in the right time during the right phases of the cycle. And so I'm really interested in what you're going to say because as we were talking about recording together, you teased that you have like 5 hacks for balancing hormones fast. And I know our listeners would love to hear them. So, what have you found to be helpful?
Sure. So the first piece is give yourself grace. This is
Mm,
a lifestyle. This is not a quick fix. So do what you can, but don't stress about what you can't.
mm,
And so that's the first piece. The second piece is look at your foundational pieces. Before you go get a bunch of tests that are going to cost a lot of money and you take a bunch of supplements and even do some hormone replacement, let's make sure our foundations are laid first. So I created something called the hormone puzzle, which is the 6 foundational pieces that you should focus on. And I know we don't have a lot of time here, so I'm just going to briefly touch on this.
yeah.
But it's P is our proper whole food nutrition. U is understanding supplements. What am I taking? Do I need it? Do I not need it? Z is zapping stress, really looking at the pieces that cause stress in your life, removing them or working with them. Z, the second Z is Z's or sleep, making sure you're optimizing and prioritizing your sleep. L is love and encouragement. E is exercise and environment, making sure
Mm,
you're steering clear of environmental toxins and your environment that you live in is safe and serene. So that's the second piece. The foundations are laid. The third piece is blood sugar. This is one I feel doesn't get a lot of attention or play, but blood sugar is one of the key pieces in balancing hormones. So, how do we balance our blood sugar? We make sure that we're eating healthy fats and enough protein with every meal. We're eating enough food at every meal. I find so many women are running around like crazy and they're not eating enough and they're not eating consistently. So, and the other piece of blood sugar is hydration. So just making sure that you're balancing and causing your blood sugar to be, stable throughout the day. Number 4 is have a support network. You can't have optimal health if the people you surround yourself are not supporting you. So make sure you have a good partner connection, whether that's with your husband or your partner. Make sure you have good friends and family and a good support system around you personally, but also professionally. Have a nutritionist or a dietitian on board, have a functional medicine doctor, have these practitioners who are experts who can support you through this healing journey and as you're balancing your hormones. And the fifth piece is if you're doing all of these things and you're still having symptoms that are more than just minor annoyances, then that's when we need to look a little further. Do we need to do some basic blood work? Do we need to look into functional lab testing? Do we need to find if there's a root cause, maybe a toxin issue or a gut issue or something that is causing your hormones to be out of balance? That foundational pieces alone are not going to be able to fix. And so those are really the 5 pieces that I would recommend to balance those hormones fast.
I love every one of those. I think they're so important. And I especially appreciate the fact that you talk about those being balanced fast. And so, probably when people listen or clicked on this, download the episode, they're thinking, oh, it's going to be 5 supplements that I need to take, or this one medication that I need to start taking. And it's really so much easier than that in a way. We think about taking a supplement as being an easy solution, but it's actually, when you think about it, taking care of yourself, making sure that you have that foundation there to support yourself, to feel at peace, to feel confident. That's going to help you right now and in the long term too. And I love that you started out with giving yourself grace. That's so important.
Definitely. And two, to piggyback on that, you can't out supplement a bad diet and lifestyle. So no
Yes.
supplement in the world is going to fix things unless you lay those foundations.
Yes. But you're going to see results from doing the 5 things that you just talked about. There will be improvement. If those are areas in your life that just like as she's saying them, you're like, oh yeah, I don't do that. Oh yeah, I don't have that. I don't have that. Then you are going to see results from focusing on those 5 things. And so it is really important. I especially love too the blood sugar focus because that is something we talk about a ton on Woven Well. We have so many episodes. We'll try to link a couple of them, but a lot of times women don't know that they have blood sugar regulation issues because they're not diabetic or pre-diabetic, and that's all that their medical professional has tested for them. Would you say that's important for every woman to balance her blood sugar and be thinking about that, or only those who already have a diagnosis?
Every woman, every person should be balancing their blood sugar.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, your blood sugar, your glucose is what we pull from the food we eat, and that's what gives your body energy. It gives your body the energy to do all of its processes, to make the hormones, to balance the hormones. So it is a really key foundational piece that every person in the world should be doing.
Absolutely. Now, you gave us a little bit of a sneak peek at the hormone puzzle method that you have, and I'm glad you did. I want to talk about that for just a second because I agree with you that it's important to have those basic things established first. And then, if there's a need to do more beyond that, then of course you have the opportunity to do that. I would probably add another letter, which would be something for cycle charting. I haven't come up with what that letter would be because I think it's so helpful to be able to see it and track the changes, really. I think a lot of times when women begin charting their cycles, maybe through the Creighton model system, which is what we teach, or some other things, they'll see their cycles on paper. Maybe they're surprised. Maybe it's what they're used to. But what they don't often think about is as they go through treatment or your hormone puzzle method or whatever it is that they're going through, the goal is to start seeing actual changes on the chart, the cycles to improve, the periods to be healthier, the cervical mucus to be stronger, the length of the luteal phase to be really strong and healthy with that good progesterone. So, have you found that women who go through your puzzle method need additional treatment, more specialized treatment, the majority of the time? Or how often do you find that being a sufficient thing for them as they're trying to get these hormones balanced?
Yeah, I mean, it really just depends on where they start.
Mm.
Some people come in and they're already doing a lot of those things and they're still, having symptoms of hormone imbalance or they're still not getting pregnant. So for those people, I would say you don't want to stop doing the foundations, but you might need a little bit more just based on where you've come in at. On the other side of that, sometimes people come to me and they're not doing hardly any of those things. Maybe they're
Yeah.
eating a standard American diet, they're not drinking enough water, they're working and, kind of burning the candle at both ends. And so for those people, sometimes just putting those foundations in is enough to move that needle into the positive to where they are like, oh my gosh, my period's gotten better. We're getting pregnant. We're minimizing all these hormone symptoms. And so sometimes that's enough, but it really depends on where they start as far as how much protocol or support they need.
Yeah, that's great. Starting with nutrition is such a great place for everyone because we think about things like inflammation and not getting enough protein. You mentioned an example of someone who needs to eat more, actually, more calories, more nutrition. I had a client just very recently who her registered dietitian, who was somebody who's been on our podcast before and I respect deeply, almost doubled the amount of calories that she should be eating a day, and her chart just like came alive. Her cervical mucus is amazing, like her period is really healthy, less brown bleeding, like so many things changed, and she's a very healthy person. She prioritizes her health, her exercise, what she eats, what she drinks, but it just goes to show that you really need tailored, individualized guidance. It's not just what you find online or Instagram or things like that, but something that's specific to you. Have you found that to be true?
I have definitely. And I find so many times too, people think they're eating healthy and they're eating enough, but we're so inundated with things to remove. You should go low carb, you should go low fat, you should cut this food group or that food group. And before you know it, you're not eating enough. And food
Yes.
is a building block for hormones, especially our cholesterol and our fats. And so if we're not eating enough, we don't have the building blocks to make these hormones. And then that's when things can go awry. So definitely I see this a lot within my practice. And it was my personal story too. I had HA that was undiagnosed and I didn't realize it. And one of the pieces was I wasn't eating enough and I was overtraining. And so I think this happens a lot and it's a big issue I see.
Yes, and you feel like you're being healthy. You're probably exercising, working out, trying to stay healthy, but we really need to care for our bodies. We need to nourish ourselves as a part of this whole process, which is why one of the things in your puzzle program was the connecting emotionally with your spouse or your partner, like having that kind of deep support and relationship there. And I love the perspective that we are whole people, I would say designed by God as whole people, physical, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And so we want to honor those different aspects of our creation and care for each one. So this is not just a medical situation. This is not just a physical situation, but it is emotional, it is mental, it is spiritual all as well.
Yeah, all of it. I think that's such an important piece. And that's why I included it into the puzzle method because I feel like the people you surround yourself, you need to have love and encouragement and support. But also another piece we haven't touched on is that's including yourself. You need to love yourself and encourage yourself and really support yourself internally as well as externally.
Yeah. And that was the first of your hacks, was to give yourself grace as you start through this process. And I think that that starts from acknowledging your own dignity, that you've got that dignity just because you're a human being. And so acknowledging that, honoring that, and, sharing that love with yourself is really important too. All right, well, maybe go through the 5 hacks one more time, just very quickly summarizing those for us. And then we'll kind of close out for today.
Sure. So, one, give yourself grace. 2, focus on the foundations, the puzzle method, if you need an easy acronym to remember the foundations. 3, balance your blood sugar every day. 4, have a good support network around you within your community and with your spouse. And 5, if you've done all of these things and you still need additional support, look at doing further testing, get a functional medicine doctor, and do some foundational labs.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. I'm definitely going to make sure to have a link to your website and the puzzle method, as well as our other episode together that was on your podcast. I'll put all that in the show notes.
Perfect. I love it. Well, thank you, Caitlin.
Listeners, what do you think of Dr. Kayla's hacks? Are these things that you've tried before, or have you heard something new, or maybe just changed your perspective a little bit about how you think of these things? They're not optional, but they're foundational, and that perspective shift can often make a big difference. So we would love to hear if they work for you. Feel free to send us a message through our website at wovenfertility.com. As always, thanks for listening as we continue to explore together what it means to be woven well.